The town of Erothin and its history. The peninsula of Erothin was a stronghold of the Norman northern kings of Nehrim at the beginning of the Second Aeon. For the brave warlords of that time, the geographical situation of the peninsula was ideal for the construction of a fortification, a primitive one from today's point of view, to defend the coast and to watch over Faldrin's Hall and the bordering Salathin forests, which were created just a few millennia beforehand as the star Waran crashed into the world of Vin. Exact dates are unknown, unfortunately, as the records contradict one another greatly in some parts. Around the year 3000 after the star, the influence of the Lightborn, i.e. the gods, began to grow significantly in the whole of Vin, for the Alemannic folk especially were strictly focused on the beliefs in the divinity. In addition, the Alemanni and the Normans were bitter foes at the time and fought for the prevalence of the yet unsettled territories in Vin. For this reason, both tribes got more and more caught up in wars of beliefs and religion that went on for millennia. In the year 7400 after Star, the gods, who had a lot more influence in other parts of Vin than in Nehrim, for example Artwent and Inadan, decided to stop the war and further bloodshed by striking with their power and their army, taking sides with the Alemanni. This decision was intelligible, for the war chiefs of the Normans were pagans and therefore opposers of the gods. With these unified forces, the gods and the Alemanni managed to conquer the stronghold on the peninsula of Erothin at the Great Battle of Eros. The Normans were no match for the onslaught of unified forces and offered to surrender to the gods, who, after weeks of negotiations, agreed that the kingdoms of the Normans in the north was allowed to remain, and the kings of the Normans were allowed to keep their reign, but were subject to the gods as protectorate. That is how it came that the Norman king at the time, Wesrud, secretly married the goddess Izara, who gave birth to a son. The young newly born god was named Erodan after Erod. Wesrud was mortal, and after his death, Izara left the land of Nehrim. Her son Erodan took over the business of the reign and initiated an era of prosperity in Nehrim. In the years 7650 after Star, he decided to restore the former fortress at the estuary of the Erod and make it the capital city of the land, and so founded the Nehrim we know today. He constructed both bell towers, of which only one remains standing today, and called Erothin the town of both towers. In the decades to come, the belief in the gods spread amongst the Normans, and eventually the gods recruited the best and bravest warriors and made them their order of paladins, which existed until the end of the Third Era. In the year 8900, after Star, Neradzu Aranthial was born, son of the paladin leader and nobleman Tialur Aranthial, who ruled over the north of Nehrim. Neradzu Aranthial was also accepted into the Order of the Paladins, but betrayed him later. The exact reasons of his actions are unknown, but it seems that members of the Order set fire to the second bell tower in Erothin, with the plan of putting the blame of the attack on the mages, who, just as today, were subject to strict impressions. Aranthial noticed this, and thought that the Order of the Paladins shouldn't be allowed to apply such measures. In 8923, after Star, he managed to defeat the majority of the Order, as well as the god Erodan, at a battle for the town Tremar. He killed Erodan and enslaved the survivors of the Order. Our present Chancellor Baratheon was one of them. Neradzu Aranthial also subsequently managed to fight his way through to the gates of Inadan to overthrow the gods and to raise himself to a prophesied god who was to come to free the world of the Lightborn, that is, the old gods. Whether or not such a prophecy exists, or whether it is an invention of Aranthial, is unknown to this day. At the gates of Inadan, however, the gods Tyr, Irlanda, and Izara joined forces and managed to capture Aranthial, after Baratheon, who in the meantime had become general to Aranthial, suddenly pulled back his army from Inadan. As a token of gratitude for the retreat of the army that Erothin had meant to use to overthrow the gods, the Divine Ones left the continent of Nehrim to Erothin, who controls the fate of Nehrim to this very day. Or like, quite a few days ago, when he died.